Hi, this is a regular magazine. I'm Jason, and in today's video we're going to look at Cathay from the old world Warhammer Fantasy. So in this video we're going to look at Cathay. We're going to look at the background of Cathay in the first part of the video. And then I'm going to look at some of the historical influences you can find within Chinese history that have influenced the development and the creation of Cathay. We're then going to look at some of the new models that are coming out. I'll give you some of my opinions on them, but I'm also going to look at some of the historical miniatures out there which you could bring into your Cathay army. So let's get on with it and get cracking. Nestled in to the east of the old world, beyond the mountains of Morn and the Darklands, lies an enigmatic realm called the Grand Cathay. As a land steeped in ancient mysticism, imperial grandeur, and draconic rule. In the Warhammer Fantasy Battles universe, Cathay serves as a fantastical reflection of Imperial China. Blending historical inspiration with the rich, sort of chaotic tapestry of Warhammer world. It's long shrouded in mystery, and Cathay has recently emerged into the spotlight thanks to the prominent role in Total War Warhammer 3, which expanded its lore and brought its majestic armies to life. Cathay's vast territories encompass diverse landscapes. They have the fertile floodplains of the river Hung, dense jungles teeming with exotic beasts and western deserts, and the snow-capped peaks of the mountains of heaven. Now to the north looms the Great Bastion, which is a colossal fortification rivaling the Great Wall of China. It's manned by legions of soldiers to repel the relentless chaos hordes from the northern wastes. At the empire's heart lies Weijin, the celestial capital. It's a city of soaring pagodas and palaces adorned with jade and gold. It's said to be designed by the Dragon Emperor himself. There are other key cities which include Nangao, a bustling trade hub, and Shenyang, which is a coastal fortress guarding the seaborne threats. It is ruled by the Dragon Emperor and the Moon Empress, ancient celestial dragons who assume human form to guide their subjects. Their children, the dragon-blooded Shugenin gang, I think I pronounced that correctly, govern the provinces and wield immense magical power. Cathayan society is hierarchical and bureaucratic, emphasizing harmony, scholarship, and the devotion to celestial order. Astronomers and alchemists hold quite high prestigious roles, deciphering the will of the heavens and crafting inventions that blend magic and technology. Now, the empire's culture venerates balance between yin and yang, tradition and innovation. This duality is embodied in the Dragon Emperor, representing Yang, the sun and order, and the Moon Empress, representing Yin, the moon and intuition. Now, religious practices honour ancestor spirits and celestial beings with grand festivals marking astronomical events. Now, the military might of Cathay are armies that are disciplined and they're quite diverse. You have the Jade Warriors, and these are elite infantry clad in lacquered armour, and they defend the bastion. You have Celestial Dragon Worm Lancers, which are noble cavalry riding winged steeds, striking with precision. Then you have the Terracotta Armata. These are animated constructs, and they're remnants of the ancient dynasty, and they serve as tireless guardians. Then we have gunpowder units. These are mastery over rockets, cannon, and fire lancers, which gives Cathay a technological edge. We then have sky junks, which are basically floating warships armed with bombs, flamethrowers, and they're dominating aerial conflict and battles. Now, the Navy patrols the Jade Sea, and their role is to repel pirates as well as securing trade routes. Cathay's military strategy emphasizes unity and adaptability, often leveraging terrain and celestial magic to outmaneuver foes. Technology of Cathay draws from the heavens with astronomers, channeling comet strikes, and manipulating celestial winds. Alchemists brew potions and engineer marvels like the aforementioned sky junks. The Shugengan lords blend draconic power with martial prowess, unleashing storms of ice or fire in battle. Now, this synergy of magic and innovation makes Cathay a pretty formidable, if not enigmatic, power. Now, there are several notable figures within Cathay's sort of society. First up is the Dragon Emperor. He's a near mythical figure. His will shapes Cathay's laws and defences. We then have the Moon Empress, who's the guardian, the Emperor's spiritual well-being, and rarely seen but deeply revered. Then we have Mao Ying, the Storm Dragon, quite a ruthless ruler of the northern Cathay and commands the Bastion defences. We then have Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon, an eccentric lord of the western provinces and who's obsessed with alchemy and experimentation. Now, Cathay's isolation is tempered by trade ties with the High Elves, Dwarves, and merchant princes of Marienburg, yet threats abound. There are chaos incursions, ogre raids from the mountains of Morn. You have the hobgoblin Canates and the Skaven scheming in the shadows constantly. There are also rivalries with eastern neighbours like Nippon and Ind, and this sort of hints at a broader unexplored geopolitical tensions in that area. Now, once a peripheral mention in lore, Cathay's inclusion in Total War Warhammer 3, which was developed alongside Games Workshop, has revitalised its role. There are new details. Its dragon-ruled hierarchy, the Terracotta Legions, and cosmic magic have cemented Cathay as a cornerstone of the Warhammer world, poised to shape the future narratives of the old world. Cathay stands as a testament to sort of Warhammer's ability to weave myth and history into a compelling fantasy tapestry with its dragon monarchs, celestial magic, and timeless struggle against chaos. The Empire offers a fresh perspective on heroism and tyranny. As Warhammer universe expands, Cathay's star continues to rise. Cathay's is a beacon of ancient power in a world teetering on the brink of annihilation. A lot of people have said that the Three Kingdoms period has played a massive influence on the Warhammer Fantasy's Grand Cathay. Now, the Three Kingdom period in ancient Chinese history spanned from the late second to the early 3rd century. It was a time of political intrigue, military conquests, and cultural development. As the Han Dynasty fell into decline, 3 powerful warlords emerged: Cao Cao, Liu Bei, and Song Quan, each vying for dominance of China. Now, this era was defined by shifting alliances, betrayals, and significant battles, and it left a lasting impact on both the historical records and popular Chinese culture. So, Cao Cao was a skilled military strategist, and he sought to unify northern China under his rule, whilst Liu Bei claimed to be a descendant of the Han royal family, and his aim was to restore the dynasty, and he formed a coalition to oppose Cao Cao. Now, Sun Quan ruled over the southern territories, and he carefully balanced alliances with both leaders to maintain his power base. Now, the period saw the rise of other legendary figures such as Guan Yu, Xiang Wei, and Zhu Liang, and a lot of their exploits have been immortalised in literature, folklore, and media over the years. Now, the rich history of the era is marked by the rise and fall of kingdoms, heroic deeds, and enduring legacies. It's inspired by Imperial China in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. Grand Cathay is the largest human empire in the sort of Far East. It's heavily influenced by Chinese history. The setting incorporates elements of not only Chinese history but culture and mythology, and including inspirations drawn from the Great Wall, Silk Road, and Daoist pantheon. Now, the military and strategy of Cathay's armies are known for their disciplined infantry and powerful cavalry, and this reflecting the strengths of their historical counterparts. The Cathayan gunners, for instance, take inspiration from Ming Dynasty musketeers. Gunpowder weapons such as rockets, muskets, cannon pay homage to the Chinese advancements in military technology. Now, Cathay's military strategies emphasize both discipline and maneuverability, mirroring traditional sort of Chinese warfare tactics. The cavalry units are clad in a distinctive laminar armour, and they resemble the Iron Pagoda cavalry of medieval's Jin dynasty, which was from the 1150 to 1234. Now, Song dynasty troops would refer to them as Iron Towers, and modern historians and archaeologists have suggested that the metal pieces that made up the laminar armour were produced using a cold fusion technique, which made them extremely strong. And in order to deal with this new type of armour, the Song developed a new crossbow, which was much larger and more powerful than traditional ones. They also discovered that blunt force weapons were far more effective than sort of swords and bladed weapons. Now, whilst the blunt weapons such as hammers didn't damage the armor very much, it would cause severe blunt force trauma to the Jin soldiers. Now, these aren't the only influences. There are other influences in there. We can see there's obviously influences from the Tang Dynasty with the armor designs for the Cathay troops, and the influences have been taken from several periods of Chinese history. Now, some of the cultural and mythological influences have included the name Cathay. Now, this isn't a Chinese term. This is an archaic term that was used in medieval Europe to describe China. So in Chinese language editions of Warhammer, Cathay is referred to as Zhendan, which is another historical name for China. Now, the Cathayan pantheon of gods are also inspired by Daoist deities. The very concept of yin and yang is central to Cathay's magical and cultural themes. The Dragon Emperor, for instance, is a living deity whom bears a striking resemblance and similarity to the mythical Jade Emperor of Daoist tradition. Now there are some historical parallels with the weapons and technology. Grand Cathay gunners closely resemble Ming Dynasty musketeers, as we said before. During the late Ming period, following conflicts with Japanese pirates, during the 1560s to 1600s, China adopted black powder firearms and cannons on a much larger scale than previously. An elite Imperial Guard unit was formed during the Ming Dynasty called the Divine Machine Battalion, and they specialised in black powder warfare, volley fire techniques. Now, the Grand Dragon cannon, which we see in the Cathay army, does actually take its influence from a notable historical weapon called the three-wheeled wooden vehicle with Chinese dragon cannon. Long Shen Pao, which was used by the Qing army during the sort of 1875 period and later. And this was intricately designed cannon which featured dragon carvings and bronze embellishments, bearing a resemblance to sort of a more steampunk aesthetic, yet served on the actual battlefield as a weapon. Now, the Three Kingdom period and its legendary figures have left an enduring sort of legacy, inspiring countless retellings in literature, drama, and video games. And it has played an influence on Warhammer Fantasy's Grand Cathay, but it's not the only rich historical and cultural influence on the Cathayan military and background. There are other parts of Chinese history that have been pulled into it, as well as mythology as well, to create this sort of world building sort of country place in the Warhammer world. And Cathay captures that spirit of ancient China, bringing to its grandeur to life within a sort of fantastical realm. And the more you sort of dive into Cathay and its background and its lore, you will see that where those influences have come from. Like I said before, we've got bits of within the army itself. You've got bits that have been taken from the Ming dynasty. You've got bits taken from the sort of Jin dynasty. You've got bits taken from the Three Kingdoms period, and there are elements that will be taken from the Warring States, which is far earlier in China's history. And then you've got influences that have even come from Qing in the latter part of the Chinese sort of empire dynasties, because Qing was the last one before they went into the modern era. So there is a lot of influences there, and then you go into the sort of world building side of it, and you can see there are several influences from across Chinese history, and it's got a rich history of 5,000 years. So, you know, Games Workshop were very lucky in that the fact that it has such a rich history, they can pull bits from here, there, and everywhere to create this fantastical realm within the Warhammer world. So, we look at some of the influences. I'm now going to sort of look at the new miniatures that are coming out and kind of give my opinion on them, and then we're going to look at some of the historical miniatures that are out there that you could pull into your army as well. Okay, so the first image we're going to look at is the Grand Cannon. As we can see, it's a fantasized version of the Qing cannon, with the embellishment of the sort of bronze dragon head. And obviously it's much larger than its historical counterpart. Now, I do like this miniature. I like the fact that we have an ogre to load the cannonball. The figures here are really quite nice. There's a lot of detail in this in my model, and overall I'm quite liking it. I like the fact that we've got this character here who's quite old. Yes, this is quite a good set. So the next one is our infantry, and we can see on the infantry the armour and the fact that this sort of lamellar scale armour has come from excuse me, the Qin influence, but the helmet is a more, I would say, Tang influence, and the shields and the rest of it are from varying different periods. Now, the weapon here, the G, now that is I would say it is a Ming design. It's influenced by a Ming design. Though this style of weapon has been around in various forms throughout Chinese military history in the ancient period, from the sort of warring states right through to the Ming dynasty. And the style just changed. It was basically a lance with a sort of axe or spike dagger on the side here. Next up, we'll be looking at the cavalry. We've got a couple of weapons here, different types of weapons here on these guys. We've got the same look with the armour, heavily influenced from the Jin dynasty, and Jin as in Jin, not Qin. So we have what was regarded as the cavalry lance over here. And this was quite a formidable weapon and was used predominantly across sort of from the sort of Three Kingdom period onwards by cavalry. We also see this here, the glaive. Now, this was a weapon that was used both by cavalry and infantry. And I would say when it was being used in the cavalry, it was probably being used by officers rather than normal cavalry personnel. Normal personnel, cavalry personnel, would have used the cavalry lance. Now, a famous general from the Three Kingdom period, Lu Bu, has often been shown using either the glaive, here we see here, or a sort of halberd type weapon throughout sort of medieval Chinese literature and media. I think it was like 2017, 2018, his actual tomb was discovered, and in the tomb, the weapon that he was buried with was the cavalry lance. Now, that suggests to many that is the weapon he used, and not a more ornate glaive or halberd. Though some people have said that that's because his real weapon, which was quite famous in literature and stuff, was stolen by Cao Cao. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But what he was buried with was a cavalry lance. Next one we're looking at is the rocket version of the artillery piece. Again, there are obviously options within this kit, so you can change what each of the miniatures are carrying. So we've noticed there's a lot of change here with the ogre. He's no longer carrying a cannonball. He has what looks like gunpowder and a large mace. The old guy is carrying a rocket in a bucket, and gone is the lighting stick carried by this guy, and he's now carrying a rocket. It's essentially the same cannon artillery piece. We've got the dragon. The only thing that's changed is the barrel. For a cannon barrel, it's this multi-launch rocket system. Again, I really like this piece, this artillery piece. It gives that dragon head, gives it sort of that sense of grandeur. It's not just an iron tube, so to speak, or bronze tube. It's quite ornate and quite stands out. It stands out on the tabletop. Now, this is a general lord piece sat on a winged, what can be described as a dragon beast. Now, some people have said this is. I'm not too sure, but some people have said that this is very similar to a Japanese mythical creature. Now, I'm not too familiar with Japanese mythology, so I couldn't say. I know it doesn't look like a Chinese dragon. Possibly the influence for this particular dragon has come from Japanese mythology rather than Chinese. It's a really stunning piece. I like this. The only part of this that concerns me is still on the rock feature. How this is attached to this rock is the only thing I worry about, whether it's integrated or whether you're sticking it on there with glue. But we'll have to see when it comes out. It's a really nice miniature. I really like the paintwork on this. We can see the influences there on the armour that take them from, I think, the sort of Tang period in China. I'm pretty sure in the Tang period we had these big, heavy sort of shoulder plates. During that period, they'd have had a big bronze sort of circular plates on the chest. But overall, yeah, he looks very Tang period as well, with a top knot and flowing hair. Now we have the gate guards. Now, in Chinese history, the palaces would have been guarded by special troops. Now, a lot of these troops wouldn't have come from the ordinary ranks. They would have been sons or relatives of the noble class. These guys would have been quite ambitious. They're looking to be, by joining the palace guard, there's chances of them being promoted, not only within the ranks of the military, but being picked out within sort of bureaucratic opportunities and stuff like that. It's basically advancement. So these would have been already people that are of noble birth historically. So I'm guessing within Cathay law, this might be a similar thing, that they're not ordinary peasants or ordinary citizens, that they're from nobler families and stuff like that, like they would have been in history. And these would have been highly trained troops. to guard the palaces, because within Chinese history, the palaces were pretty much self-contained. You couldn't go in there unless you kind of worked in there. And the only people that left, that came in and out of those areas, would have been nobles. All the servants, things like sort of ordinary people that were working and living, would have lived and worked within the confined to the palace and weren't allowed out. There was very strict control over who came in and out of those palaces. So again, these are really nice. I can see a lot of influences from various different Chinese periods. But again, these are really nice sculpts. Now, the banners are transfers before anyone sort of looks at that and go, oh my God, how am I going to... Apparently, those are decals. Again, we notice that there's a lantern will feature heavily within Cathay Army, and I think it's because it features heavily within Chinese cultural and heritage and history. Do you like the armor on the horse? It's quite nice. They're really nice sculpts. So far, they're quite impressed with the style and design of the army. So, of all the miniatures that I've seen on the Cathay Army early release, so images that have been released so far, this is one I'm not keen on. Now, it's an automata. It's a giant size, and it is quite large. There are images with a 28mm next to it, ordinary figure. It's quite a big piece. I'm not likely to purchase this, in all honesty. I just don't like it at all. I think it's too big. It's a nice piece. It's nicely sculpted. It's nice. It's got a lot of nice decorative pieces on there when the armor and stuff like that. It's quite ornate, but it just doesn't really hit my spot personally. Now, this is Ming Lao. This is one of the characters of the Cathay Army and world, Cathay World. She's a dragon that can take human form. So we have the dragon form here, and then we have the human form. I like the fact that they're on these rocks, though the human form, it kind of does look quite delicate. You can imagine if you drop that might break you quite easily. The dragon's really nice. So that's a nice piece, that. And it's on those rocks. And those look pretty sturdy in comparison to the human form. Again, we see there's now a close-up of the human. And as I say, it's quite delicate in parts when you look at those rocks. It looks really nice. It looks really impressive, but I can see a lot of breakage points on those. I do like the way the cloak floats up to give that sort of air of sort of wind blowing up behind and around her as she's sort of rising up. It's a nice figure. It's one of the nicest I've seen for a long time, especially the dragon. I mean, GW have outdone themselves with this model. It's not a very good picture. This is a nice piece. My problem with it is these are 28mm figures in this basket. So that gives you a sense of scale of this. It's huge. And whilst it is a really nice piece and it's really impressive, transporting that is going to be a nightmare. If I get one of these, it'll be sat on a shelf and will only be used at home. I don't see me taking this out to play games with, because I'll be too worried this is going to get damaged and transporting it about. That's my biggest concern with this model, is being able to transport that. It's going to literally need a case of its own just for you to take it out and about. So that's my biggest concern with that, is its size and being able to transport it without damaging it. What's great is it's all plastic. It's a really nice kit. GW have knocked it out of the park with this army, to be honest. And there's some exceptionally nice pieces within this army, and this is one of them. Its problem is its size and how you're going to transport that safely. We'll have to wait and see. Well, let's move on to looking at what historical miniatures are available out there. So just going to have a quick dive into what historical miniatures are available that you might be able to use in your Cathay army. And the first one I'm going to look at is Eureka Miniatures. And they produce a range of miniatures around the Chinese War and States period. And there are miniatures in here that might be useful within your Cathay army. One of the ones I'm going to point out, if we just go over the page, is they do have chariots. Now, I'm not too sure whether in the Cathay army they're going to bring out chariots, but I do know that in past editions of Warhammer Fantasy, when they covered Cathay and Nippon in sort of second, third edition, Cathay did have chariots. And so if you're wanting to bring chariots in, Eureka Miniatures do have some chariots, and they are quite nice. They are a bit pricey at £30, but they are a metal. This is a metal kit. And I say it's Warring States period. Historically, the chariot fell out of use pretty much after the Warring States, and that was because of weapon technology. It became fairly redundant post Warring State period. Now, the next one I'm going to quickly look at is Foundry. Now, Foundry only pretty much do Qing period miniatures. And one of the ones I'm looking at is the miniatures for the Taiping Rebellion in China during 1851 to 66. Now, a lot of these you're probably not going to be able to use, but because I don't think the Qing period, a lot of it fits with the aesthetics of the Cathay army. But the cavalry, you probably could use them as light cavalry or something to that nature. The sort of peasants, this ordinary spearmen and things like that, you probably could get away with using if you were going to build militia peasant units. These might work well with them. But overall, a lot of them just don't fit because they're a bit too modern in comparison to what is Cathay. Cathay's pretty much set in the medieval sort of periods of China, which is from sort of towards the end of the Three Kingdom period right up to sort of the Ming Dynasty. And then Tiger Miniatures do a range of miniatures that cover sort of Korean and sort of Ming period. Some of these you might find are useful for sort of creating a city guard or something like that, sort of lower end troops. And then First Corps again do Warring States period, and so they've got a lot of cavalry. They've got a lot of which would make up sort of I would call light troops, military type units. You could use these as. And then another one is Mongol Cavalry by Fireforge. Now, in the past editions of Warhammer, they did have what were called HU cavalry, or HU, and they were pretty much stylized on the steppes. Genghis Khan, think Genghis Khan, Mongols, cavalry. So if you wanted to bring in Mongol cavalry, these might be perfect. They're all plastic. You get 12 in a box for roughly £25 to £30, depending on where you buy it from. Now, the other one I wanted to point out is Watchful Eye Studio. Now, these guys, I don't think operate anymore. So you may have to do some real searching for these miniatures. They are exceptionally nice, and I do have some of these miniatures, which I haven't painted yet. And there is a unit within Cathay armies that were called the Terracotta Automata. And they're automatons of ancient Cathayan troops. And you could easily make use of these if you can, well, basically, if you can find these guys, they'll be perfect for the sort of automaton, sort of terracotta warriors. My feeling is that the company doesn't exist, but there might be stores out there, places out there that still hold blisters of these guys. It might be worth having a look to see if you can find any, because these are really nice sculpts. If you can't, then you could use the ones from Eureka, and use their versions of the sort of terracotta warrior as automatons, or you basically just wait to see if Games Workshop bring a version out at a later date. Anyway, that's all of the historical bit of the stuff. I'll just give you my final thoughts, and then that'll be the end of the video. So overall, I quite like the Cathay army. I mean, this is one of the newest armies for Warhammer Fantasy for a long time, and it's one of the new armies, completely new armies that Games Workshop has brought out for some significant time as well. And I personally think they've knocked it out of the park. I mean, it's just really nice miniatures that you can see where those influences have come from to create this new fantasy sort of army, and this lore and background that's for Cathay. There's a lot of really nice single big pieces in there. The lantern, really, really nice. Like I said, I'm not sure how easy you will be to transport it, because it looks exceptionally big and potentially delicate in places. But overall, I think the army works really nice. It's going to look really great on the table. Now, the big question is, are we going to see armies for Arabe, Ind, or Nippon? I don't know. Who knows? I probably will, maybe, if this one sells exceptionally well. Now, the other question is, why did they bring out this one and not another army? My suspicion is that the reason for bringing out Cathay is because Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar are exceptionally big in China, and this is an army that will appeal to that Chinese audience in China, and it will be a huge seller in China for definite. It will probably sell well elsewhere, but I think the primary reason this has come out is because China has become a big market for Games Workshop. I didn't notice how big it had become until on my recent trip over there, and it's huge. There's a lot of player base over there, and a lot of them like playing Age of Sigmar, 40k and Old World. And they are the main sort of, I would say, main war games that are played there by predominantly a lot of players. So yeah, I think Cathay's come out because it'll hit that Chinese market in a huge way, as well as elsewhere parts of the world. I imagine it's going to be a big seller, full stop, to be honest. Because it's new and those miniatures look really nice. Anyway, that's all for this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time.